What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 64 of On the Spot Sports. In today's episode, we have college goaltender Garrett Metcalf coming on the show. Garrett most recently played with Mercyhurst University. He played with UMass-Lowell his first year of college, and he just recently committed to play another year with Long Island University. So, I want to welcome him onto the show. This was a good episode. We talked a lot about his road to playing college hockey and where he wants to be after he gets done with college, which is playing professionally. So let's get right into this episode. Yo, welcome back to another episode of On the Spot Sports. I'm Jack, and I'm alongside my co-host Tyler, and we are joined by a very special guest, Garrett Metcalf. Garrett is a college hockey goaltender, spending time with Mercyhurst University for 2 years and played 1 year with the University of Massachusetts-Lowell. He is also a current draft pick of the Anaheim Ducks of the NHL and is one of the hosts for his podcast, Adversity University. Welcome to the show, Garrett Metcalf.
Yeah, thanks for having me, fellas. I'm excited to be on here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming on. It's gonna be a blast. So we're in these weird times right now. So have you been affected by all this Corona stuff these past 3-4 months, or how has that gone for you?
Yeah, so as we were chatting before, like I mentioned, I'm out in Colorado Springs. Obviously, it hit in March, and our school was kind of canceled. We had to do everything remote. So I came back here. This is where I train in the summers, even though I'm from Utah. Our season was fortunately already over, so we weren't affected at Mercyhurst that way. But and then training out here has been good. There's been a few restrictions, but for the most part, I've been able to train since March. We had a home gym here for the first month until our gym reopened, but my goalie coach had private ice in Black Forest, so been skating with him there. And then we started our college and pro skate up at Monument with the Colorado Rampage.
You mentioned when the pandemic struck, your season was already over, and a lot of our other guests, they've been right in the middle of their seasons when this pandemic struck. So how easier was it for you to kind of get into some sort of rhythm since your season was already over compared to other people's who weren't?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was, as far as a rhythm and training, I feel like it's the same as everybody else's. I just didn't have to deal with the stress of, what could have been. I know there's a lot of teams that obviously had a chance of winning a national championship, and I don't think our team had a chance of winning it. And obviously, we lost in the first round of playoffs, so I didn't really have to deal with that adversity of knowing that my college season was over, and then the NCAA was granting certain seniors, depending on what sport they played, another year of eligibility. So I know a lot of my buddies that were seniors were hoping that they got another year of eligibility, and they didn't. But like I said, I was fortunate enough that our season was over, and I kind of had to – I played out my senior year essentially, and didn't have to be affected by it.
Yeah, at least it wasn't affected for you guys, but you would hope that you'd be on going on a run for the national championship. But it's good that it didn't affect you guys, and you didn't have that shoulda, woulda, coulda thing, because that would have torn me apart if I was
Yeah, for
in that
sure. I know some of
situation.
my friends, it's been hard for them to handle. And then you talk about the whole pro side of it too. The kid that I live with, Sean Giles, just finished up his 4th year at Robert Morris, and he's been waiting to sign a pro contract because he was going to sign on the coast after the year was over and go play a few games, get acclimated, and obviously their season ended. So he fortunately just signed with Cincinnati, I believe, for next year. I know that we don't know when the season's going to start and all that stuff, but so it's good that hockey's starting to get back on a roll here.
Yeah, so what's your plan for next year? Because you're a senior this year, right?
Yeah, so I'm in a weird situation. So my freshman year, I was at Lowell. I transferred and had to redshirt because when you transfer from a Division I to another Division I school, that's part of the rules, or at least it was when I transferred. I know it's changed a little. So I have another year of eligibility. I was actually committed to Michigan Tech for the last 4 months. And then for whatever reason, they kind of backed out on that offer. But I just committed on Friday to go to Long Island University. So it's a new school in the NCAA next year. It's going to be a little bit different, but I've heard nothing but good things about Long Island as a place, as a school. I heard it's great academically, and I'm really excited to play for Coach Brett Riley. The Riley family's kind of a legacy in the coaching world. So I'm really excited to have a good coach our first year there.
Yeah, congrats on committing to Long Island. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
What are your sort of expectations when you, I guess, first play with Long Island, since you haven't been able to meet any of the coaches and then any of your future teammates? So what are you kind of like expecting whenever you get the chance to meet them due to obviously the coronavirus pandemic?
Yeah, so I've kind of been in a similar situation before where I transferred to Mercyhurst and I had to meet all new teammates. I guess it's just like starting any new year. The only thing that's going to be different is there won't be a core group of guys that were there the previous year. Everyone's going to be new. I know there's like 5 other transfers that'll be there. They're in the same boat that I am. And then we'll have some freshmen that have played junior hockey. So I think it'll be good. I'm excited to meet the guys. I only know one person that's committed there, and he actually trains with me here in Colorado Springs. And Connor Schmiel, we're pretty good friends. So it'll be nice to know one person. But as you guys know, when you play on hockey teams, you kind of find friendships and people that you like pretty fast. So I'm not too worried about, the atmosphere and finding guys to hang out with. And I'm sure the culture and the team will bond together for sure.
Yeah, hockey's such a great sport. Like you get along with your teammates right away, and like you're not like that like outsider. You just fit right in with the boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So can you give the viewers a little background information on like when you started playing, why you started, why you became a goalie, the teams you played on leading up to juniors and stuff like that?
Yeah, so a little bit of background on me. I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. My dad ref professional hockey for 26 years. So my brother and I grew up going to the games. It used to be in the IHL, which is now the American League. It was the Utah Grizzlies back then, and it is now, but now they're in the East Coast Hockey League. So I just grew up watching it all the time. I started skating when I was like 3 years old. I played player for quite some time, but my brother would get sick of shooting on the empty net. So he actually used to tape pillows to my legs. He'd give me a player helmet, a player glove, and then I'd put a baseball mitt on my catching hand. And he just pretty much told me to stand there. So I kind of owe all the credit of me becoming a goalie to my brother. And then to be honest with you, when I was younger, I was kind of a fat and out of shape kid. And I thought that being a goaltender was easier than being a forward as far as effort goes. And I quickly realized that wasn't the case. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into goaltending, and then played AAA hockey in Utah till I was 15, moved away from home, went to Omaha, Nebraska, played for Omaha AAA for half a year, and things kind of didn't work out. I ended up leaving, coming here, played the second half of my U16 year with the Colorado Rampage, played my first year of U18 with the Rampage. I was actually the backup. I think I only played 10 games maybe. My goalie partner was drafted to the Madison Capitals, and I got invited to camp and ended up making the 30-man roster out of camp and ended up making the team after that. And then that whole year was kind of a whirlwind. I was supposed to be the backup. We had a guy that was older. I was slated to play maybe 15 games. I ended up splitting with him. We both played close to 30. I committed to UMass-Lowell halfway through. And then that summer I ended up getting drafted. So kind of a whirlwind of a year for me, but a really good experience. And then I went back to Madison for my second year of juniors and got traded to Waterloo around 3/4 of the way through the season because Waterloo was in playoffs and Madison wasn't. And PK O'Hanley, the head coach and GM in Waterloo, is known for having 2 good goalies going into playoffs just in case something happened. So it was actually me and Cale Morris, who's just finished up his 4th year at Notre Dame. We're goalie partners in Waterloo.
You mentioned before that you played hockey in your hometown, Salt Lake City, until you were 15, and then you moved to Omaha. What was the biggest adjustment for you going from Salt Lake City to Omaha, obviously being away from home?
The biggest adjustment for me was like I was just used to being around my parents all the time, and I was only 15, and then I dealt with so much stuff. You really have to grow up fast, and it forced me to grow up fast. Like I would always talk to my parents, but they're not there to deal with the situation, and you kind of have to deal with it firsthand. I didn't really play a whole lot, and I was told I was going to, and the teams kind of ran like a junior team, and it should have been AAA. Like you're only 15 years old. So dealing with the struggles of not playing for the first time and then you're also on a team with your peers. And I don't know if you guys know, but sometimes guys that don't play, if you don't have the right attitude or mindset, you get picked on a little bit. And for me, going through this my first time, I probably didn't have the best attitude and mindset. I wouldn't say that I was an outsider by any means, but I didn't feel like I really belonged on the team or, clicked with everybody like the majority of the guys did. So I would say that is the hardest part, just having to grow up at such a young age and deal with these hard issues so early on in life.
Yeah, so how did you have to grow up in a sense, and like what do you do to like make sure that you're meant to be there, and like it's not like you're not supposed to be there?
Yeah, so like I said, it was really attitude and mindset, and I didn't get that until I came to Colorado. And it was the second half of my 16th year was great. I played a lot. My teammates are great. Like if you're the starting goalie, like guys like you just because you're their guy and you play. And I think I have a good attitude and personality that's likable. And when things are going well for you, it's easy for you to stay positive. Where when things are going bad, it's hard to stay positive. It takes, an everyday effort. But it was my first year of 18s. Like I said, I was the backup goalie, and I feel like I worked so hard in practice and never got to play. And I actually sat down with our head coach and just said, "Hey, like, what do I got to do to get an opportunity to play?" And he was like, "You just have to trust the process and enjoy it." And we had a pretty serious heart-to-heart conversation. And after that, I wasn't focused on playing anymore. I was focused on being the hardest worker every day in the gym and every day on the ice, just outworking my goalie partner and getting better and focused on that process and knowing that the games are going to come when they come and I can't really control that. And when I did that, my time was a lot easier. My nickname was actually Coach G. I would stand on the bench and tell guys they had a great shift, or if I saw something I thought they could improve on, I'd let them know. And even the coaches at the end of the year called me Coach G. And my plan before I went to the USHL was to come back and play on the 18 team again for my second year. I was actually going to be the captain. So it really wasn't until that time that I developed into a more mature person, and it took someone to sit down to me and say, "Hey, listen, this is how it is, and this is what you have to do." And something that's really stuck with me since then, and me and my dad talk about all the time, but control what you can control, and that's your attitude and your effort. And that's just what I try to do now in my everyday life, because in college, you're probably not going to play every single game, and you don't want to be known as the bad teammate that sits onto the end of the bench and pouts because you're not playing. Because at the end of the day, it's a team sport. It's not an individual sport. I didn't sign up to play tennis or golf. So
Yeah, exactly. And like what you said about control the controllables, I think we all learned that, especially this year with the coronavirus pandemic and all that. Like you just got to control what you can control. You couldn't control the pandemic, but you got to control what you can control. Like you can still work out, you can still do hand-eye and stuff like that. And like I think it really like opened everyone's eyes, especially in the past 3-4 months.
I think it's going to separate a lot of kids too, because I think there's a lot of people that say that they want something, but they're not willing to do it. And when you have to work that much harder to get your work in every day because of the coronavirus pandemic, I think it's going to separate some of those kids outside that say that they want it, but aren't really willing to put in the effort.
Yeah, exactly. Like when all this hit and like our seasons got canceled for men's league and all that, and like all the sports I play, other sports, like it was sad. It was sad for sure, but like I still had to put in the work no matter what. Even like during this pandemic, like you still got to put in the work. And even after this whole like, since we're in like phase 4 right now, and like I'm able to get back on the ice, like I've seen a lot of improvement for all the work that I've done throughout this whole 3-4 month pandemic so far.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. So do you think that playing on like 3 different teams for 2 different levels for the Colorado Rampage and the Omaha Lancers, do you think it benefited you, especially since you had to like learn to be a backup and to work your way up and trust the process?
Yeah, I think it really benefited me because now, like I said, I had to go through that when I was 15, 16, 17 years old. So now that I'm older, I'm 24 now, I learned that adversity at a young age, and it taught me to have a certain mindset. And now I take that mindset into every situation. So I feel like there isn't a whole lot that can phase me. I think that my journey's been a lot different than most have. And obviously now going on my third school in 5 years. It's something that I'm proud of. I don't know if a lot of people would agree, but I'm not the type of person to quit on a situation. And I don't think that's the reason I left UMass-Lowell, and I don't think that's the reason I'm leaving Mercyhurst. It's not that I'm quitting on that team or that program. I just think that there's other opportunities that are going to better help me personally pursue my career of playing professional hockey. So those are the opportunities that I'm looking for. But yeah, just learning that mindset early on and dealing with that adversity completely changed my mindset now as an older individual. And I know how to handle those tougher situations with more of a professional perspective.
Yeah, you talked about how you didn't think it was about quitting on the other schools. Could you say instead that it instead like prepped you for another one? Like, I'm in the same boat now with, again, going to another school. So could you say like it sort of prepped you for all the moving around you've had to do?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it goes back to what I said earlier about the whole attitude thing. I think that my attitude's changed even now as I've been older, from having to transfer from UMass-Lowell, a school that was my dream school that, I had thought I was going to be there for 4 years and play a significant amount of time and eventually hopefully sign a professional contract with Anaheim. And after that first year was completely different than what I expected. So for me, it really told me that it's good to set goals and have expectations, but know that those expectations can change, and they can change very drastically. And yeah, I think it's prepped me just because you learn to adapt and you learn not to take things for granted, because how many kids can sit there and say that they have one Division I opportunity? And I'm very fortunate enough to have had 3 or 4, or whatever it is. So it takes going through those situations has taught me not to take things for granted and to enjoy what you have today, because it can be gone tomorrow.
Yeah, I really like the way you said that, and it also helps that you think like that, because like it just helps you move forward like as you go on, and you've been lucky enough to get 4 Division I offers, like you said. So like that, like really like helps like you're like putting yourself in a good place, especially if you want to play pro hockey. Like you're like going in the right direction. That's literally all you can ask for at this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then you found your way on to playing with juniors with the Madison Capitals in 2014, 2015. So what was it like playing juniors in Madison?
Madison's an unbelievable town. Wisconsin is beautiful. Growing up in Utah, I've lived in a lot of different places in my life now, and Madison is one place that I would go back and live in. Just an unbelievable town, great college town. There's the people there are first class. Like, when they say, you go to different states, and I don't know how what the rep is in Chicago, but like people in Madison are just unbelievable people. They care about you. They're nice. They're not assholes. They're just really good people. And my experience in Madison was great. It was our first year back in the USHL. They used to be in the USHL earlier on. So it was cool to be on that inaugural team and kind of set the tone. And we weren't great that year, but it was, again, very fortunate to have gone through that experience with my teammates and learn the ups and downs of a junior season, and know that it's a 60-game season. So every night doesn't matter as much, but every game does still matter at the end of the day, because you're in a playoff race throughout the entire year. So trying to learn to get ahead or to manage, and you just learn a whole lot. And it was a great experience. I'm blessed to have been able to play there.
Yeah. So you said earlier in the episode that you were invited to the Capitals tryout because your goalie partner was there as well. So like, what was that like tryout like, and like getting invited to the camp?
So I had been to camps before. When I was 15, I went to the Spokane Chiefs main camp in the Western Hockey League. And then I went to the Omaha Lancers main camp in the USHL. And that was before I went and played Omaha AAA. And those were good experiences. And at 15, I knew I wasn't going to make the team, but it was just learning the professionalism of the game, comparing yourself to your peers or kids that have played in that league that may be a little bit older than you. And then for me, going to Madison, that was the only camp I was going to go to that summer. And my whole thought process going in was, I'm just going to do the very best I can and have a good time and hopefully create a name for myself for the future. Because like I said, my plan was to go back and play my last year of 18, AAA. So I just went in with a good attitude and a good mindset. And it was funny because after the first practice, the head coach was out there and the practice was over and he skated up to me and he was like, "You only let in one, huh?" And I let in one goal the whole entire practice, and it was like a rebound. And I was like, "Yeah, it was a rebound. It shouldn't have even gone in." And I was just shocked because I was an invite only. Like there's 6 different teams at this camp. There's probably 12 to 18 goalies at this point. And they had noticed what I had done in practice. Like we hadn't even started scrimmaging yet. So that was a pretty cool experience. And then one kid was late, so I had to practice again after, and I was pretty tired. And I ended up pulling my hamstring. So I had to battle through that the whole entire rest of the camp. And again, during the games, I just was doing what I could and trying to find a way to stand out. Obviously, my size kind of helps, but just playing big and playing simple. Ended up making it to the All-Star game, and there was 4 goalies there. 2 that had been drafted to the team that were older than I was, and me and a kid that went to Shattuck. He actually plays at Brown University now, Luke Kania. And I knew that it was going to come down between me and him to be the 3rd spot to go to the 30-man roster. And we played at like 7 in the morning, and I think I gave up maybe 1 goal the whole time, and he gave up 5 or 6. So I knew I had a good chance, and then went into the exit interview, and they told me I made the team. And I remember walking out telling my dad I got to customize the gear to match the team, and he was all fired up. So it was a really good experience, but I just took it for what it was and enjoyed every day and tried not to think too much about making the team or what was going to happen. So
Yeah, so you pull your hamstring in the middle of the camp. So like did your mind go in a negative way, or did you just do anything you can just not injure it any more than it is and just stay positive, or what do you do for that?
yeah, I mean, I didn't want to tell anyone that I had hurt myself because I didn't want them to think that I was throwing out excuses. So me and my dad went and got some Icy Hot, and I would just put Icy Hot on before we went on the ice for every skate. And I just tried to tough it out as best I could. I knew that I was trying to impress coaches, and it was a little bit of pain, but at the end of the day, the reward would be a lot better. So I mean, looking back on it now, it's been so long, I don't really remember essentially how I felt, but I know that it probably bugged me, but I try to just put it in the back of my mind and just do my thing.
Yeah. So would you say that in a tryout or a camp, do you not think about making the team? You just think about just playing your game and just keeping it simple, or what do you do for your mindset?
I think that goes with anything, right? You're talking about tryouts in general, but if you think about a game, as a goaltender, you can't be worried about oh, I don't want to give up a goal. You have to be worried about making the next save. So I think it's the same when you go into a tryout, because there's a lot more pressure because you only play 4 games. Maybe you have 1 practice. This is over 2 days to impress a coaching staff or whoever they have scouting. So I think if you put too much thought and effort into, I want to make this team, I'm going to make the team every day, you kind of stray away from what your biggest goal is, and that's to stop pucks. So I think if you just simplify things in your mind, you don't have to worry as much, and you're not mentally blocked, and you're able to just go out there and just do your thing and play your game. It's the same thing for I know, Jack, you're a goalie, but for people that aren't goalies, if you focus on too many details when you're trying to learn and develop, you kind of screw yourself up, and you can't let your natural ability of the game to flow through you, and you're focused on doing something else, so your mind wavers. So if you're only focused on stopping the puck and that itself, don't worry about who's watching or trying to make the team. I think that it just frees you mentally, and you're able to just play your game.
Yeah, I know earlier, for me, earlier in the season, this past year, my mind was all over the place. I'd give up 6 goals one game, and I'd be worrying about not giving up 6 goals the next game. And you all know, how that goes. You end up getting 6 goals scored on you. And then I keep thinking about it, and that just, we kept losing. So it was not going the way I wanted it to. But then all of a sudden, midway point in the season, I was I just switched the switch, and my mindset, I used positive self-talk, worked on all the little things in my game, and I ended up giving up 1 or 2 goals a game, and we are getting wins. And so that just proves that all just focus on stopping the next puck, focus on just making the save and just focus. And it does help a lot for sure.
Yeah, I think having a good mental attitude and then having the confidence too really helps. I know that this last summer was the first summer I was really able to get into the gym because I didn't have any injuries. And I came back into the beginning of this year just in great shape, and it changed how I thought about myself, and I think that changed my game as well for the better. So I think just having a great attitude and mindset, and also having confidence in yourself. But I think there's a lot of things that builds confidence. You have to have those good daily habits, and it goes into, putting in the work in the gym and what you're eating and nutrition and how your practices are. Because if you can go through a week of doing great in the gym, eating good, having all the right daily habits, when it comes to the game, like, you're so confident in yourself, no one's going to beat you except for yourself. And I think that, again, it goes to the whole being mentally free when you're playing. If you know that you've done everything in your power to be as good as you possibly can for those weekend games, you don't even have to worry about it, and you just play.
Yeah, exactly. And going into that, like after all this like pandemic stuff like started slowing down, I was able to get back on the ice. Like I've been doing scrimmages with like D1 players, like men's league players, and just like 5-on-5 scrimmages. And I went from giving up like 3 goals to like 2, and then the last game I gave up like 1. So like the power of the mind is like very important. It's mind blowing. Like if you think about it, because like if you think you're gonna do good, you'll most likely do good. And like it's awesome. It's powerful for sure.
You mentioned that like you didn't want to like overthink it, because like you could be confident but don't be like overly confident, because you said beat yourself. So is that like the biggest thing for you, is that I don't just go out and perform like you had?
You cut out there for a second. Can you repeat your question? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You mentioned that like you didn't want to overthink it and just beat yourself. So would you say like one of the biggest things for you is just to go out there and perform rather than like worrying about, I have to be perfect?
Yeah, well, I think if you try to be perfect as a goalie, like, it's not going to happen, right? It goes back to what I said earlier of complicating your mind and overthinking things instead of just focusing on stopping the puck. If you're thinking, I got to be perfect, I got to get a shutout, instead of thinking I need to stop this next puck, your mind isn't in the right place. So I think it goes back to what me and Jack were talking about. Having good mindset is key to being a great goaltender. I think what do they say? The game's 90% mental. And that's so true, because if you're thinking the right thoughts, there's nobody that can stop you. There's nobody that can get in your head. There's nobody that can get in your way. And I think that's when you see most goalies that are successful, they're usually very calm people. They don't let many things phase them in life. So I think if you are going to go into goaltending, that's something that you need to try to focus on and continue to develop. And I think it's just as important, if not more important, to have a good mental mindset than it is to be able to skate and stop pucks.
Yeah, so talk about mindset. You with Madison, you played 33 games, which is just a little bit over half of the regular season games in juniors. So like, what was your mindset like playing so many games? Like, did it like get hard at times, or like how do you like deal with that?
Yeah, so like I said, my initial mindset was that I was going to play 15 games, and coming off the year before, I'd learned to be just the best backup goalie possible as far as being a hard worker and a teammate is concerned. So I had a similar mindset going into the year. And I think not that I had my bar set low, I think it was just a realistic expectation of what the season was going to be like. And then when it exceeded my expectation, it was only easier. Like, obviously I loved playing 33 games rather than 15. But my whole mindset when we played, our team wasn't very strong as we were new and had new picks and just kind of starting from scratch. My mindset was to give our team the best possible chance every single night to win a hockey game. And for me, that was stopping all the pucks I needed to stop and making some saves that I probably shouldn't or have no business making. And I think when you stop all the pucks that you need to, it gives your team a confidence. Because when you give up a bad goal, the team's kind of like, like, That's not a goal that you want to give up, and it kind of deflates your team. So just being a good backbone and stopping the ones that you should, and even some of the ones that you shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like stopping the ones you shouldn't. Like sometimes you're gonna have to make the stops that you shouldn't, but like that just boosts the team's confidence, boosts your confidence in yourself. It boosts the team's confidence, and I believe it brings like the whole team together when you're making those saves you shouldn't, and like you're making the saves you should. It all just comes together, and like it just brings it as a whole.
For sure, I agree.
Yeah. So then you get traded to Waterloo. So like, what was it like getting traded to Waterloo? Like, what was your mindset? Did you feel bad for yourself? Did you want to did you stay motivated and like try to like prove people wrong, or like what do you do when you got traded to Waterloo?
Yeah, well, at first, I was upset I got traded just because I had created so many good friendships there. There was guys that I had played with the whole year before and that year too. So I was a little emotional when I got traded, not in a sense that I was getting traded, but more because I was leaving guys that I had created such a close bond with. I knew the trade was better for me and would give me more experience being on a team that was going to be in playoffs. I got to experience what it was like going on a playoff run. We went pretty deep into playoffs, even though I was hurt and couldn't play. But just being around the guys and the culture, it was a great experience. So, like I said, for me, I was a little emotional when I got traded, but I knew that it was a good opportunity for me to learn and to continue to develop. And my mindset as far as work ethic and being a good teammate didn't change at all. Stayed exactly the same it was in Madison. My goalie partner was obviously better in Waterloo than he was in Madison. My goalie partner was great in Madison my second year, but it was also his first year in the league, so he was trying to learn the ropes, and I was the older vet that was showing him the ropes, where Cale was a veteran. He had played one more year in the league than I had, and I had known him before too, so it was cool that we were already friends. And just talking to him and learning things from him that he had learned through his years of junior and being in playoffs and all that stuff. So I think at the end of the day, it was beneficial, and I was happy for the experience.
Yeah. So you've been injured a few times over your career. It's like, how do you get like past like being injured? Like when you came back, were you like nervous about like getting back? Like was like your mindset like when coming back and like during the injury, and, like your rehab and all that?
So the hardest injury for me is 2 summers ago, I had bilateral hip surgery, and I found out halfway through my redshirt year. And I was working really hard to build my strength to get a lot stronger during my redshirt year. I had a different workout plan than anyone on our team. So it was devastating for me that I had put in so much effort and work knowing that I was going to have to be out for like 6 months and have to just work on rehabbing, not even getting stronger. So that was kind of devastating. But again, it goes back to anything and just having that daily mentality of I'm going to be better today, and I can't worry about what happened yesterday, and I can't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. But I need to put the work in today to make myself better and just continue to build off that. Injuries, a lot of it is mindset. I think there's a lot of people that don't realize how hard rehab is going through an injury, especially one that severe where you need to have surgery. It's a lot easier when you're out for 2 weeks with a sprained groin or, like something that's just tweaked versus when you really hurt something. It's a mental grind, and you have to have a support group that stays positive with you during your dark days, and just try to stay as positive as you can through the whole entire process.
Yeah. So you had bilateral hip surgery. So like, like, did you ever have like a point where you're like, that my hockey career might be over, or like what did you have like any thoughts like that, or were you just focused on just getting better each day?
I was just focused on getting better each day. I think I instilled a mindset early on that no one was really going to tell me how my path was going to go. I was going to control my own destiny. And I'd be damned if I was going to let an injury take me out of the sport that I love, that I've worked so hard to get to the place that I am. So for me, it was never, I'm going to quit and not play. I don't think I've ever had that reality, because my goal is always to, get paid, hopefully a decent enough salary that I can make a living out of this. And I've put in so much time and effort. I'm not going to give up now.
Yeah, I really like that mindset, because like a lot of people probably would just be like, just feel sorry for themselves, but you didn't. You just kept working, and it
There was
just
definitely days I felt sorry for myself. I'm not gonna I'm not going to sit here and lie to you about that. But I don't think there was ever a day where I said I want to quit hockey. It was maybe I don't want to do rehab today or whatever that may be. But like I said, it's good to have a support system that pushes you to keep you on track.
Yeah. Would you say that the support system was the one that kept you going? Because obviously with an injury, like you said, it's hard to like go to rehab some days. Like that support system, I feel like is super important no matter what, even without injuries, just like in general.
Yeah. For me, my support system is like my friends, my parents. One that was really big for me was my athletic trainer at Mercyhurst. Her name is Trish. She was unbelievable. Just pushed me every day to get better and knew my limitations as well. She wouldn't push me super hard. She also was great for me personally because if I came in and my personality was different, if I was having a down day, she would pull me aside and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I could tell her anything, and she would give me great advice and kept me level-headed through the whole thing. She never let me get too high or get too low.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That support system right there, and like just like trying to get you better, even though like might not be motivated, just like keep you going. That's fantastic. Yeah, so then you go on for college, and you go to UMass-Lowell first. So like, what went into like picking UMass-Lowell as your school, and like, what was it like playing for a UMass-Lowell?
So for me, when I was making my college decision, I narrowed it down to obviously I wanted to go to a place that had a good team. I wanted to play in a good conference. And I think that it's arguably the best conference in college hockey. Hockey East is. I think it's Hockey East and NCHC. At least when I was making my decision, were the two top dogs. And obviously NCHC has proven themselves year in and year out for like the last 3 years. Possibly would have been again this year for a fourth year. But I want to go to a good conference. And then I wanted to go somewhere where they had a good goalie coach. And Connor Hellebuck had just graduated from UMass-Lowell. He was doing really well with Winnipeg. They also had Kevin Boyle, who signed an NHL contract with Anaheim. So I knew that was a good place, and I figured that was going to be a good spot for me to develop and learn from a really good goalie coach. So those were kind of my criteria. And then when you go on a visit too, you just kind of know like it just feels right. It feels good. You have a good connection with the coaches. The school feels good. If you're going into a certain program, they have that program there for you. That's another big thing because whether I play 10 years of pro hockey or one, the education is going to be the biggest value out of this whole entire thing. So those are really the things that I looked at when I was making my college commitment.
Yeah, so then you went on to play 4 games with UMass-Lowell. So what was it like playing those 4 games in the Hockey East Conference?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Any team you play in the Hockey East Conference is going to be a good battle. One of the games is actually at the Ledyard Classic, and I played Dartmouth, who was another great team. We ended up beating them and winning the Ledyard Classic. But any game you play in the Hockey East is going to be competitive. Playing at the Songa Center was outstanding. Our student section was unbelievable. Even the fans that came from the community were great. They packed the house almost every single night. So it was a really fun pro atmosphere to be a part of. And that was a really good team we had that year. We ended up winning the Hockey East Championship and lost in the final game in regionals to Notre Dame, who was in Hockey East before they made the transition to the Big Ten. And we had beaten them 2 weekends before in the Hockey East Championship. So that was a little upsetting, but it was cool to win a Hockey East Championship with that special group that we had. Some unbelievable players, CJ Smith, Dylan Zink, Michael Kapla, Joe Gambardella, just a very talented and hardworking group of guys.
Who would you say collectively was the toughest opponent that you guys faced in the HEC during your time at UMass-Lowell?
It's hard for me to say personally because I only played a certain amount of teams. But from a viewer standpoint, it was probably that's really tough. Northeastern was good that year. They had Gaudet. They had Secura. They were elite. They were pretty deep. Boston College was good that year. Boston University was good that year. So that's really hard. I don't think I could say one team in particular because there was a few, but BC, BU, Northeastern were all really tough opponents.
Yeah, for sure. that conference seems like it's a really good conference to play in. We've had many guests that have played in that conference, and they've all had nothing but good things to say about it.
Yeah.
And like it seems like it's very competitive and like so much fun to be a part of.
Yeah, it is for sure.
Yeah, so you said you were a part of the team that won the Hockey East Championships. Like, what was that like winning the Hockey East Championship and being like with that team? Like, how deep you guys were?
Yeah, it was a really good experience. Unfortunately, we had 4 goalies that year, and I wasn't dressed for the Hockey East Championship game. But just coming down from the stands and just celebrating with the team and knowing that, I mean, I was a part of the team too, but knowing that everyone had worked so hard and put in the time and effort to make that, like that was our goal. And for us to see that through and just the hard work, the sweat and tears that everyone went through to make that goal become a reality was really special to be a part of. And just our leadership group was unbelievable. Our captains really led the way. They showed the younger guys the ropes. We had a decently big freshman class that year. A lot of those kids, which I still keep in contact with and I was close friends with going into that year. And it was really cool to see them contribute to that as well. You don't have to be a senior or junior to make a difference or an impact at that level. So it was cool to see some of my friends making a difference and an impact their very first year.
So then so like that team like was deep. So like you guys, like you said, you made a lot of connections. So, like, take us through that time where like you went from the seats all the way down to the ice where you guys were celebrating the championship.
Yeah, so it was a weird game. The first goal Notre Dame scored from like center ice. So we were like, oh, like
Ooh.
this might be tough. It may not be good. And then Tyler Wall, my goalie partner at the time, and actually one of my best friends to this day, unbelievable guy. Nothing fazed him. And to be honest, if I gave up a goal like that, it probably would have fazed me a lot. And he didn't let it faze him. He just kept battling through. I think we ended up winning the game 3-2. And I want to say it was 3-1 with like 2 minutes left in the game. And we were starting to come down. And Notre Dame scored to make it 3-2. And we're like, fuck, this is going to be real interesting. So we came down on the corner of the bench and we were watching the game on the big screen because we couldn't be on the bench. And then just saw it, obviously count down to 0 and everyone jumped and threw their stuff. And all the guys that were in the stands, we just ran on the ice and everybody was hugging and everyone was obviously really happy. And it was just an unbelievable feeling. Like I said, to see everything and all the hard work come to fruition was a very special thing to be a part of.
You mentioned you and your goalie partner. Did you guys help like push each other and make each other better goalies?
Yeah, I think so. It's funny because Tyler and I were both freshmen together. We were both drafted. So we both kind of had this, I don't want to say like aura, but like, you know what I mean? Like there was like expectation because we had done well in juniors and we were drafted. So people thought that we were going to be good or whatever. And it was funny because when we were on the ice, we were friends, but like it was very competitive. Like my goal was to be better than him every day. I can't say that that was his goal, but I would for sure push him to be better by just trying to be my best self every day and trying to improve my game. And then off the ice, it was like hockey wasn't even involved. When I would play, he was very supportive. When he would play, I was very supportive. And those are the type of goalie relationships that I think that you want to have and you need to have in order to foster a healthy, competitive environment.
Yeah, that healthy competitive environment, like you said, is very important. Like you both want to push each other to be better and like to like the actual absolute potential you guys can be. So it's always good having those goalie partners that like push you and like practices are competitive too. Like you guys both want the ice time. So it's always fun battling with each other and just fighting for that ice.
Yeah.
So then the next year you entered the transfer portal. So like what exactly is the transfer portal and like are there more benefits than negatives if you enter the portal? Like what was that experience like?
So the portal didn't exist when I transferred from UMass-Lowell. So it was kind of just word of mouth. I had to tell the coach that I wasn't coming back. And then they had to, now your compliance officer would put you on the transfer portal. And I think the portal is really good. I went through the portal this second time transferring. And it just kind of is, I can't see it. But from my understanding, it's a list of all the players that are trying to transfer, the school that they came from, like their name and stuff. So you can look up stats, everything. So I think it's better just so every coach that is looking for a transfer can see who all is on the portal, where before it's really your advisor's responsibility to reach out to teams that may be interested. So I think this way with the portal, you don't miss anyone that may be looking for that specific position in a transfer. So I think it's very beneficial.
How hard was it for you to tell your coach at UMass that you were transferring to Mercyhurst?
So to even make the decision to leave UMass-Lowell was probably the hardest decision I've ever had to make. I was on a full scholarship at the time. I don't come from the wealthiest family. And knowing that I may never get another full scholarship opportunity, that was really hard to walk away from. It was a place I wanted to be. It was a place that I had friends there and I felt comfortable with. It was a great school academically. So there's a lot that go into it. But like I said, my goal here is to play professional hockey. And I felt like if I stayed there with the way that I was treated and how good Tyler was, I felt like that my opportunity may have been limited to what it could have been somewhere else. And I was kind of going out on a whim because I didn't know I was going to go to Mercyhurst right away. Like I didn't know until halfway through the summer. And as a goalie, you want to go somewhere you're going to play. So it really narrowed itself down, and it was only Mercyhurst in Alaska at the time. And Alaska was beautiful, but I didn't really want to go spend my time in Alaska. So Mercyhurst was the next stop, and I felt really confident that I was going to get an opportunity to play, and I did get an opportunity to play, and the coaching staff treated me great. I have nothing but good things to say about Mercyhurst. No bad things about at Mercyhurst at all. Fortunately, last year we weren't a very good team. We were really young. The Atlantic's a very good competitive league, but I think that they don't get the exposure that some of these other leagues do. So that's why I made the decision to transfer again.
Yeah, so you played 2 years with Mercyhurst so far. So, like, what has that been like? Like you said, last year wasn't like the best year for you guys, but from the 2 years that you've played there so far, like, what has been the overall experience, and like, what's it like playing hockey there in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania's beautiful. Erie's a small little town. We don't get a ton of fans at our games, unfortunately. But like I said, it was great. I got every opportunity to play, and I took on a leadership role. So it was good for me to learn how to lead and also stay within my own game. I think that's just kind of my personality, though, whether I'm a captain or not. I'm vocal when I need to be, but I also focus on my own game and try to let my leadership come through my play. So it was a good experience for me to learn how to lead the younger guys and kind of show them the ropes and what it's like every day, and how you have to show up to practice every day ready to play and get better every day and do the extra reps and make sure you're doing your workouts at the rink. And then college is a whole different ballgame for all these kids that come from junior hockey. You have to manage classes and the school schedule. And if you miss days because of games, you have to make that up, and just managing your school life before hockey, because if school is taken care of, then all you have to worry about is hockey.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, how important is leadership to you, and especially as a goalie? Like, how important is it, like, to like lead the team, since you're the backbone of the team? It's like, what's that like?
I think it's very important. I think all starting goaltenders are leaders, whether they're vocal or not. I think it shows in your play and your consistency. For me, I'm also very big in the gym. I love doing every rep because, like I said, it builds that confidence level. I think sometimes it gets me in trouble because I like to hold other people accountable. And to be honest, sometimes people don't like being held accountable. There's a saying that I love, and it's high achievers don't like mediocre people, and mediocre people don't like high achievers. So I think sometimes I found myself not necessarily with mediocre people, but people that didn't have the same standards or expectations as I did in practice and in games. And we kind of rub each other the wrong way on that. But I mean, that's how you develop a culture, right? If you look at any winning culture, it's holding people accountable and having those tough conversations with people, but you're only doing it for the benefit of your team. You know, I'm not calling someone out in the weight room because I have to put in the work and they're not. It's just that I know and understand that putting in your time in the weight room builds confidence and builds strength and only makes you better when those games do come.
Yeah, I think holding people accountable is very important for like any sport, because if you have that accountability, the team's confidence goes up, everyone's trust in each other goes up, and like it creates a very good like environment for a team wise and individually, because like everyone's putting in the work, and that everyone's gonna do their best do whatever they can to get better, and it's just creates like a fantastic environment to be a part of.
Yeah, and it just shows that everyone's pulling the rope in the same direction.
Yeah, so exactly. So like, what has been like your favorite like city that you visited, either from Mercyhurst or UMass-Lowell that you've played in?
Oh, that's tough. I think it's hard to say just because you don't spend so much time in that city and you're only going to the rink and the hotel, so you don't get to experience the actual city. But you asked me about Madison earlier. That's probably one of my favorite places I got to play. Not even for like fan base or anything, but as far as a city's concerned, with all that you can do, the beauty of it, all the lakes, the campus, everything. I'd have to say Madison is probably my favorite.
Yeah, Wisconsin's just a great state. Like overall, it's like Illinois is the same thing, but like Wisconsin, it's also like right there up with Illinois for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited to go to LIU too. I've heard nothing but good things about Long Island. So
Yeah, and good luck with Long Island. It's gonna be fun for you, I think.
yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, so later in the season, like this prior season before COVID hit, and like before your season ended, as a goalie, you don't see goalies serve many penalties in the penalty box. And I noticed that you served a penalty in the actual penalty box during the game. So like, what happened there, and like why did you have to serve the penalty and not a player?
So it's a little bit of a long story, but that was in the first round of playoffs, and that was the second game. But to give some context and background, we were playing Canisius 2 weekends before. They had a 2-on-0, and I made the save, and then our D-man recovered the rebound, ended up turning it over, and they scored right away. And I shot the puck out in the net, and I almost hit one of the Canisius players in the side of the head. And the ref was like, hey, like, you can't do that. Like, it's dangerous. And I'm like, you're right. I won't do it again. Well, we had the same refs the first round of playoffs, and we had lost the first night. It was 1-1 with like 2 minutes left. They were on the power play. We tried to rim it out of the zone. It hit the ref, stayed in, and they ended up scoring to make it 2-1, and we lost the game. So I was already pissed at these refs. The next night, we were getting dominated. Shots were 47-12 after 2 periods. It was bad. We were not playing very well, and Air Force was playing extremely well. They scored after the second goal. I shot the puck down the ice, didn't hit anybody or whatever, just shot it. And the ref was like, I told you don't do that. All right, whatever. Like, I'm not concerned about it. Then we were down 4-1 in the third period, and I knew that I wanted to finish with like a 9-10 save percentage or above, because playing on a team that was dead last in the country, I figured those were pretty good numbers. And we rimmed the puck around. It hit the ref and went to the slot. And the only person standing there was an Air Force player. And he gets the puck, walks right down Broadway, and rips me. So I got the puck, and I shot it down the ice again, and I just started yelling at the ref, just cussing, yelling at him. And so they decided to give me a 10-minute misconduct. And in college hockey, if a goalie gets a 10-minute misconduct, they have to serve all 10 minutes. So thankfully, there was only like a minute and a half left in the game, because if that would have happened during the second period, I still would have had to have served the penalty.
Wow. I did not know that you had to serve the misconduct in college, but
yeah. So I think that they were already pissing me for shooting it. That's why I got the misconduct. I think that if it was in the second period and they knew that what was going to happen, I don't think they would have given it to me. But since the game was over and there was 2 minutes left, they're like, why not?
Yeah, that was an experience for sure, I bet.
Yeah, that's how I ended my Mercyhurst career, was sitting in the penalty box.
And that you get a funny moment out of that. So
yeah, exactly.
That's at least.
How unlucky was that though, that you had the same refs in the playoffs as the ones that it happened the first time too? Like, unbelievable.
Yeah, they were good guys though too. They stayed at the same hotel as us, so we were talking to them after the game actually, and I was joking and smoking with them. So all in good fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then in 2015, you were drafted in the 6th round, 177 overall by the Anaheim Ducks. So what was it like being drafted, and like where were you when you got drafted?
So I had talked to a few teams before the draft. I knew there was a possibility that I would get drafted, but I knew if it was going to happen, it'd be in a later round. So I didn't want to go to the draft and waste all that money and not be picked. So I was actually training with my goalie coach in Pittsburgh, Shane Clifford, and I was watching the draft on TV. And they were actually going through interviews of like all the first round picks and stuff like that. So I couldn't see who they were picking. So I kept refreshing it on my phone, and my advisor called me, and I was like, what does he want? Like, leave me alone. So I answered. He's like, do you know what just happened? And I was like, no. He's like, you just got picked by Anaheim. And I was like, no way. And sure enough, when we hung up the phone, I refreshed the page and saw my name there. And to this day, I still don't really think it hit me like what had happened. A very humbling and great experience, but I'm still in college and I haven't signed a professional contract yet. So as much as that means to me, it also means nothing because I haven't done anything with it yet. But at the time, it was really cool. So we went out and had dinner that night and obviously celebrated. And it was cool. It was a good experience for sure.
Your phone must have been buzzing after that as well.
Yeah, it was going pretty crazy. So it was pretty cool. Management called me not too long after that. And then I talked to my dad. My dad was obviously thrilled. He was a little emotional, and it was just really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I've wanted to know this since the beginning of the episode. Since you grew up on the West Coast in Salt Lake City, obviously that's more west. What was it like getting drafted by a team out on the West Coast in Anaheim, knowing you won't be not too far away from home since you played college on the East Coast?
Yeah, it's obviously pretty cool, and knowing that if I did sign with them, I'll be closer to my parents, so they would travel for them would be a lot easier. The drive to California isn't too terrible. I'm sure that they would fly, but if need be, they would drive down. So yeah, it's cool that it was a lot closer to home, and Anaheim's coast team was actually the Utah Grizzlies until last year, the year before, and now they're with the Colorado Avalanche. But it was cool. They had like a press conference for me and kind of introduced me to their fan base a little bit like that. And my dad's really good friends with the head coach out there, Tim Branham, and I know him very well too. And it was just, like I said, really cool to be a part of, and cool to see all the support from people in Utah just because they knew that the Grizzlies were a feeder into Anaheim. So I think they were excited about that as well. So it was cool to see all the support from local hometown people.
Yeah, so what's it like playing or being a part of like the Anaheim Ducks like development camp, and like what's that experience like? Because it must be a lot of fun playing with guys from like the AHL, the coast, college guys. Like what's that like?
Yeah, so development camp every summer is a really good experience because you're playing with a very high caliber of people. Not only that, you're developing and learning from the best in the business. Obviously, they're coaching in the NHL for a reason. So every week I just try to soak up as much information as I can and learn from the guys that have been through it before. One of the coolest things for me is going through development camp every year is seeing the guys that, you're at camp with that are playing in the NHL that year or the next year, or just seeing their careers blossom. My very first year, I was rack partners with Marcus Peterson, who's doing very well in Pittsburgh now. And Brandon Montour was there, Nick Ritchie, Troy Terry, Max Jones, like all these guys that put in big minutes for Anaheim or other NHL clubs. It's just cool to be able to be around those guys and learn from them, even though they don't play the position of goaltending, but just learning from them and their experiences and just trying to soak up everything.
Yeah, so what's been like the biggest like learning thing that you've learned from going to development camps as like as a goaltending side, and like maybe as like a person side of you?
I think from the person side, not much has changed. I don't think that they would have taken a chance on me and drafted me if they didn't know that I was a good person. But as far as learning experience, it's just really the pace of the game and how fast those guys are and how fast they can skate, how fast they can move the puck, how quick their release is, how fast they get their shots off. Because you're thinking these are some of the best kids in college hockey, the top 5% maybe of college hockey, and you're at a development camp with that top 5%, not to mention guys that have played in the NHL or even the American League. So they know the pace and the speed, and they obviously are playing at that speed. So just trying to make that adjustment to, beat the pass or be in front of the pass and just reading the plays because it does happen that much faster.
How hard was it to track the pucks, or did you find that it was pretty easy to transition from that?
I found it was easy to transition. Obviously, you get scored on a little bit more at the development camps and practices and stuff like that because the guy's shots are that much better, that much faster. But after the first day, you're usually fine. For me, my first development camp, I was a little nervous, where now I've been so many times, I know what it's about. So I don't really have any nerves going in. I just try to enjoy it and soak up as much information as possible.
Yeah. So what's been like your favorite memory or moments from like the development camps that you've been a part of?
We do a lot of cool activities. We went go-karting before, like at a legit go-karting place. So that was a lot of fun, just seeing the competitiveness of guys come out in other aspects of life. We do cooking classes. We've gone to Angels games. We went to the Oakley Outlet. So we've done a lot of cool experiences that way. But for me, my first year when I was there, Frederick Anderson, who is my favorite goalie, was still with Anaheim and he was in town. So I got to meet Freddie, and that was an unbelievable experience for me.
Yeah. So how awesome was it meeting Frederick Anderson? Like he's a stud of a goalie, and like he's such a good goalie like in the NHL, and he's like probably one of the top ones in the league right now.
Yeah, no, he's a really good guy too, and works really hard. I know when he was first drafted, I think someone said he was like 260 and maybe 280 pounds, and he had lost a lot of weight and devoted a lot of time to his off ice stuff. So I idolize him in more ways than just being a good goaltender in the NHL.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I have a few more questions for you. So like, what has been like some pros and cons of like practice, like during like practices? What are some like pros and like what are some cons that you've figured out?
Um, I don't know necessarily cons besides maybe getting tired. But pros that I've learned from practice is treat every day as a new day and try to be your best self every day and trying to be consistent throughout the whole practice and not let your mind wander, because there's sometimes we do drills that aren't really for goalies or you don't see a lot of shots, and most every college team carries 3 goalies, so you're sitting on the bench for a better part of some of those drills. So it's just staying in it mentally and trying to take every day as it is and continue to get better every single day.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One con would be probably getting hit in the head with a puck.
I did get a concussion once from practice, but that's a rare thing, I think. So
Yeah, that it's always the worst when, especially if you get hit in like the forehead area, like it it doesn't feel good.
yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, so you along with your co-host run a podcast called Adversity University. So like what is the podcast about, and like what made you guys create it, and like how do you think it's going so far for you guys?
As you guys know, podcasts are easy to start, but they don't really get off the ground very fast. So we only started maybe 3 months ago now. I think we're going to be going on episode 14, which dropped today with NHL Hall of Famer Larry Robinson. So we're really excited about that episode. But yeah, it just kind of started. I was just brainstorming one day in quarantine because we're all bored, and not that my life's any more adverse than anybody else's, but I thought that I've kind of gone through a lot of hard times, and I think it'd be good to share that knowledge of what you've learned through going through those hard times. So we created Adversity University to try to show younger kids, parents, anyone that's maybe going through a tough time or hasn't yet, that no matter what you go through in life, you can still become successful in that business. So we interview highly successful athletes or individuals in their profession on the obstacles they have overcome to reach the peak of their profession. And for right now, honestly, the best thing for us is we just learn a lot about ourselves and a lot about these other people. And it's very inspiring for us and on how not to give up. And we think we have it bad, but there's some people that have it way worse than us. And I think that with social media nowadays, it's all so fake. It's just how good everybody's lives are at that one particular moment. And as you guys know, and everyone can to attest to, is that's not life. There's a lot of hard times that come with life. There's a lot of being alone and being with your thoughts. It's not all great and grand, and you don't ever see that stuff on social media. So we're trying to get that out to people, that even these celebrities or people with a higher status that have accomplished a lot more don't deal with these things on an everyday basis as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like podcasts, like I recently got like really into like podcasts like ever since we started this, so it's been like a lot of fun. And like you learn a lot from, because like all the guests that we've interviewed, you've interviewed, it, everyone comes from a different story and like different background, so it's very interesting to hear what everyone's background was like, and like how they got to where they are, and like why they're so successful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like I told you before we started this episode, like I really love like all your episodes that you've been doing, and like it's awesome how you guys are like like giving like awareness, like adversity and like how adversity like happens and like how you gotta like go past that to be successful and like get through that. So I really do appreciate that, and it's so much fun listening to you guys on on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you guys post it. It's been a lot of fun listening to you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate the support, and we're glad that you're getting stuff out of it. That's our hope for all of our audience members, is that they learn something and they can get something from every episode.
Yeah, for sure. And podcasts are so informative, so it's just great to hear everyone's podcast for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Tyler, do you have any last minute questions?
Yeah, I had one more for you, Garrett. You growing up from Utah, Colorado, the Rocky Mountain area, I have to ask, even though there's no NHL team in Utah, growing up, was your favorite team the Colorado Avalanche as a young kid?
It wasn't, to be honest with you. I didn't really start to like the Avs until like the last 2 years when they started to get Nathan McKinnon, even now Cale Makar. I remember I was watching playoffs one year and I was watching McKinnon, and maybe weird to you because you think I should be watching the goalies, but I was just watching how dominant McKinnon was, and he honestly became one of my favorite players, and I think that he's arguably the best player in the entire NHL. Obviously, Connor McDavid's up there, and there's a few other notable players that I'm not mentioning. But I love the Chicago Blackhawks. It's who I grew up loving. Corey Crawford used to be one of my favorite goalies. I think Chicago has some of the best uniforms in all of sports. So that's kind of who I grew up idolizing, to be honest. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's funny how you like the Hawks, even though you grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. But like, just growing up watching the Hawks, like being from like the Chicago area, it's been like a lot of fun. Like we also have the Chicago Wolves, like in the AHL. So it's been fun just having hockey around you, around like the Illinois area. Just we have teams in Wisconsin, like all over the place. So it's been a lot of fun just like watching them and just learning from like all the players on TV or going to the games in person.
Yeah, for sure. Good opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. So Garrett, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, and we want to wish you the best of luck with Long Island next year.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I like doing this, and keep doing what you're doing, and I wish you guys nothing but the best.
Yeah, you too. Keep doing what you're doing
Thank
with
you.
the podcast and your hockey career, and hopefully we'll see you in the NHL one day soon.
Yeah, hopefully. You guys take it easy. If you need anything, just reach out and let me know.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Yep. See you guys.
Thank Garrett Metcalf for coming on the show. We had a lot of fun with him. Glad he came on. It was a blast for us. It was a blast for him. So we want to thank you guys for watching and listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and thank you for watching on YouTube. And please go follow us on Instagram at On the Spot Sports with underscores between each word. So on_the_spot_sports, On the Spot Sports. And go take a listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks.